Hi, my name is Adeline, and I am part of a support group for widows called We Care. And together with some of my fellow widows, I attended this program called Journey On here at the Red Pencil. My husband died early 2019. He had been chronically ill for maybe about 9 years before that, but only seriously ill probably 3 years before that. So basically, I was a caregiver, also while holding down a full-time job for like 3 years, and then he died. So basically, I was left alone on my own now. We don't have children. I'm an only child, so I have no siblings. My husband's side of the family a little bit dysfunctional. So basically, you can say that I was alone in my grief. And I think it was slightly exacerbated when COVID happened the following year. So I was not just, alone coping with my grief. I was literally alone and everybody else was in lockdown. So there was nobody who could come and reach out to me or anything like that. So I would say grief was very lonely, very solitary. So through We Care, I found out about this program, Journey On. And at that time, I would be like, I would do anything that would help me. So it wasn't so much art therapy per se, but it was just therapy, any form of therapy that would help, and also being in the company of my fellow widows. Because when I met some people at We Care, I realized that the best support you can get are actually your peers, people who have gone through this thing with you. There are certain things that they relate to that your best friend might not, your sibling might not. So yeah, so that's how I ended up with this. When I was caregiving and really stressed out, and I also got anxiety, the one thing that grounded me was actually coloring. I did a lot of adult coloring books, especially mandalas and all that, and I found that the art of coloring centered me. To me, it was a form of mindfulness. You are focused on making that piece of art that everything else you just forget for the moment. So for that moment, I would forget about the stress of caregiving and all that stuff. The thing was, after my husband died, I just lost the bandwidth to color. So for that, maybe 3 years, all my coloring books and color pencils and all that were just left on the shelf. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't understand why. I just lost that spark of creativity. And actually it worried me. I really thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was losing my creativity. And because of that, I thought I was losing sense of myself as a person. So when I heard about this art therapy program, I was like all for it, because I was hoping that it would try and bring back that something that I lost, that so-called creativity, but also like it wasn't just making art, it was also art and therapy. And I think if you combine the two, you are going to get somewhere. So I was really, really interested in the program. So this was probably, I think second or third session. So basically she just walked in and gave us 3 mini canvases. You can do whatever you want, but one canvas, do something that depicts the past, and then another canvas depicts something that is a present, and then one canvas depicts something that is the future. You can do it 3 separate things, which probably might have been the idea when she gave us 3 pieces. And you can use any medium that you want. But I actually chose to join up the 3 to form like a triptych, because for me, the past, the present, and the future is all linked. You can see it separately if you want, but I prefer to see it as, linked together. And we all use different mediums. Some people use stickers all over. So they had 3 separate different canvases of stickers and different things up. So I was the only one who used watercolors, and actually I surprised myself. I have not actually worked with watercolors. I have not painted since primary school. I don't really know why I was inspired to pick up the watercolors, but then to me, when I saw canvas, painting was the best thing that I could associate with it. I actually tried magic ink and color pencils, but obviously they didn't take very well to the canvas, so I did watercolors. So what I did was the past, very cloudy sky and dark clouds. Present, clouds a little bit lighter, skies a little lighter, and then there's a little bit of a sun coming out. Future, more sun and flowers. You know, happy stuff. And of course the sky like this. So after we did this, the therapist actually analyzed it a little bit. And she said something that really surprised me. Because I also mentioned to her, I hadn't touched like watercolors for like decades, you know, since primary school. And she said, like, actually of all the people, you chose the hardest medium. And I went like, I didn't realize that. Then she said, yeah, but you know, that's a good thing. It really shows that you're okay with, you know, your difficulties, and you're meeting your difficulties head on. And you're working with difficulties, and you actually managed to create something beautiful and creative. And like, wow, I was so proud of myself about that. So yeah, I went home and then I put this like on the table, and then I'll probably frame it out. This was my favorite piece of work on the whole thing. That was a very illuminating session. I would say the support for caregivers stopped at the patient's death. Prior to that, I did get support. I have like medical social workers asking me what I need. I had one who was brilliant. I told him like, I'm having trouble managing this. So he broke down all that and he supported me. But all this ended when the patient died, and basically I am not his case anymore. I have to say that when a patient dies in hospital, I'm also drawing from experience with my father. You are not given much support. Basically, you go in there, you sign out the body, they give you this booklet to tell you what to do. The minute you sign out of that, you are not in that system. And because you're not in that system, you're not getting any support. So the thing about caregiving is, I should have realized that it's a one-way street. You know, especially when you know the patient is at end of life, that's it. Your patient is not going to recover, he is literally going to die. What happens after that? Nobody discussed that. And I was actually kicking myself after the funeral because I realized that, you know, when we plan for the patient and all that caregiving stuff, you cannot plan until the day of the funeral. You need to plan beyond. What happens to the caregiver? What happens to the grieving family? In my case, it was very acute because, like I said, I went home alone to an empty house. And that was when I realized there should be some sort of help for people like this, and yet there's none. I would have thought that if you were actually in the process of supporting a caregiver, whether you're a medical social worker or whatever, then you need to extend that support to a little bit till beyond the death. And I have to say that it's also very complicated grief. Because my first emotion is not grief, it was actually relief. Because suddenly, I am free from caregiving. I felt relief, but I have known of other caregivers who felt guilt. And that is also another very common emotion that probably is not being supported. That's the thing, like, people don't talk about grief. The only instances, I think, of loss that we ever see personally are probably like first when our grandparents died, and then our parents died, then now it's our spouse, right? But the thing is, all along, perhaps at my age and in my generation, when my grandparents died, my parents just went like, oh, that's part of life, we just shoulder it on. Let's bear with it mentality. But it's not as simple as that. Until one day you realize that, you know, it's been what, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, you're still feeling very raw and sad, and that's when you realize, yeah, you really need some help. And the thing about art therapy is that it's not so frightening as therapy, because therapy is not something a lot of people go through. The difference is when you talk, you just blah, right? And it becomes very emotional and everything, but it's a little bit unfocused. Art therapy, you are working on a piece of art, maybe a drawing, a coloring, or clay molding, and then during that time, all your emotions and your energies and everything is just focused on that one thing. And to me, that's being mindful. You don't think of it as a therapy, you and a therapist speaking and examining and your very raw emotions. You see it as creating a piece of art. And then whether your therapist infers anything from what you've created, like what mine did, that's between the two of you. You were actually sharing in a safe space with other people who have gone through the same journey. Some of their experiences are a little different and everybody's journey is different, but we all share that one common ground. The minute like you say something or you express something, somebody instantly gets you. And you don't get that with a one-on-one therapy sort of thing.